This is the 1961 Kurosawa classic Yojimbo. Its title is written in kanji, meaning bodyguard. When it was brought to China, audiences simply read the kanji in Chinese as 用心棒. But 用心棒 does not mean bodyguard. It means a diligent stick. And yes, it sounds every bit as pornographic in Chinese. Now, this is John Woo's 2008 epic Red Cliff, or in Chinese, 赤壁. When it was distributed in Japan, the distributor saw the kanji and thought, damn, that looks epic and historical. Let's call it Red Cliff. And that just sums up the whole mess. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. A friend once complained to me about the way Japan pronounces Chinese names. For example, this guy from the Apothecary Diaries is called Jinxi, but those kanji read 人世 in Chinese. This dude from Kingdom is called Eise, but he's a real historical figure in China and is called Yingzheng in Mandarin. I'm about to piss off my Chinese viewers, but my friends, do you call him Kimura Takuya, or do you just read his name as Mucun Tuozai? The linguistic history between Chinese, Japanese, and Korean is as long and complicated as the relationships in Grey's Anatomy. A lot of mingling, a lot of bickering, and a lot of death. Today, we are wading into the hot mess to see how this tangled history affects the way Chinese and Japanese films are presented to each other. Maybe one day we'll invite Korea to the party. I'm sorry man, I don't speak Korean. It's going to be silly and cynical, and I hope you get a good laugh. This is the messy relationships between Chinese and Japanese. Before we begin, we should clarify that a language is not just a writing system. Chinese speakers share a common script, and excuse our definition of language. But plenty of languages have no writing system at all, and Japanese was one of them. Proto-Japonic is believed to have arrived in Japan with settlers around the 1st century BC. For the next millennia, Japanese existed purely as a spoken language. When kanji was imported around the 5th century AD, it was not used to record spoken Japanese. Known as kanbun, kanji texts were Chinese, guys. Being literate in 5th century Japan just meant you could read and write classical Chinese. It makes sense, as literacy at the time was mainly the domain of monks and court officials, who studied Buddhist sutras, Confucian classics, and diplomatic documents, all from China. It wasn't until the 8th century AD when Japan finally began using Chinese characters to record Japanese speech, mainly poetry. The result is Manyogana, a system that mapped the sounds of Chinese characters onto Japanese phonemes, turning a logographic system into a phonetic alphabet. The thing is, Chinese and Japanese aren't even in the same language family. Fitting Chinese writings to Japanese is like fitting all the pieces into the square hole. It makes people cry.
It goes in the square hole.
Here's the Chinese character for temple. Today, it reads as Ji in Cantonese. When the word was borrowed as kanbun, the Chinese pronunciation came with it. But in Japanese, the word for temple is tera. So what did they do? They slapped on a second pronunciation and left the rest to context. As the result, Japanese kanji is sometimes pronounced the native way, tera, known as kunyomi, and sometimes the Chinese way, ji, known as onyomi. Yeah, just slap that bad boy and show me how many pronunciations you can fit. You can fit one more if you relax a little. This mess of a situation is best illustrated by this. This is a temple located in the Asakusa district of Tokyo. Asakusa Tera. Except it's pronounced Sensoji. There are 3 goddamn characters and they all change pronunciations the moment they become a throuple. If that sounds confusing, don't worry, it's just as confusing to Japanese people. I have a Japanese friend who said Asakusa Tera, and I just don't have the heart to correct them, man. I know it's a simplified overview, but that's the gist. By the 9th and 10th century, kanji characters were simplified into hiragana and katakana, 2 phonetic alphabets. But of course, Japan never stopped using kanji for its semantic value, thus the now famous free writing systems of Japan were all derived from Chinese. As you might expect, This connection produces some wacky interactions with Chinese speakers. Fitting everything into a square hole might make you cry, but fitting everything into Squarespace will for sure make you smile. That's because making a website with Squarespace is simple, flexible, and fulfilling. Every edit happens right in your browser, as easy as drag and drop around the Squarespaces. Text, image, video, you can add whatever you want and the process stays intuitive throughout. It is as unifying as the Chinese script and as adaptable as the Japanese writing systems. It's through this frictionless creative process you can best create a website that expresses your ideas, which makes your brand or portfolio more professional and yet approachable. Start a free trial at squarespace.com/accentcinema. Use the code accentcinema for 10% off your first purchase. With a full suite of tools, your website can represent you, advertise you, and communicate for you. Every need goes into the Squarespace. So, why not get started? Visit squarespace.com/accentcinema and make your website today. Earlier, we mentioned how Chinese people perceive language a little differently. Indeed, China has many mutually unintelligible dialects, but they share a unified script. A Hakka speaker and a Shanghainese speaker cannot hold a verbal conversation, but can write to each other without much difficulty. Since Japanese borrows from the same script, the same logic applies, but to hilarious results. Simply put, Chinese readers can read kanji, but not kana. A Chinese person will look at the Like a Dragon game series, Ryuga Gotoku, and see dragon something like something. And yeah, that's what mainland Chinese fans call it, Rulong, meaning like a dragon. Officially though, the game is called Dragon Among Men, which goes pretty hard, I have to say. But that is the broader convention. Since they can communicate verbally but can't do so via writing, Chinese readers default to reading Japanese words, but in Chinese pronunciations. So this is not Kaneshiro Takeshi, this is Jin Chengwu. This city is not Osaka, it's Daban. This affects how films get translated, sometimes to inferior results. The Japanese title for Spirited Away is Sendo Chihiro no Kamikakushi, the spiriting away of Sen and Chihiro. In the film, a girl named Chihiro has part of her name taken away by a witch. Her original name, Chihiro, is Kunyomi, while her new name, Sen, is Onyomi. As Onyomi is associated with classical texts, the new name carries an ancient, mystical connotation. It turns the friendly-sounding Chihiro into an adult-sounding Sen. The metaphor of a lost childhood is baked right into the title of the movie. The film's mainland Chinese title, however, is Qian Yu Qianxun. As you can see, part of a Qianxun's name remains. The alienating feeling of having her identity taken away was unable to be translated. He is Tokyo Story and Ugetsu, pronounced Tokyo Monogatari and Ugetsu Monogatari respectively. Despite the term Monogatari means nothing in Chinese, it just think and speak, the titles remained unchanged when shown in China. And yet, through repeated exposure to Japanese media, Chinese audiences grew familiar with the word without it truly becoming a loanword. The Chinese reading, 物语, remains largely unused in everyday speech, and carries a distinctly Japanese flavor, with one exception. Stranger Things in Chinese uses the term to invoke a Japanese campus horror atmosphere. It's a weird choice, but it works. Of course, this kind of carryover is not that common. With film distribution becoming more professional, proper localization is now the norm. Shoplifters, pronounced Manbiki Kazoku in Japanese, is properly translated as the thieving family in Chinese, swapping the Japanese Manbiki for its Chinese equivalent. Your Name similarly did not carry over its kanji title, despite doing the like a dragon thing and calling it Jun Zhiming would actually make sense, but it sounds strangely archaic. There are also movies like Ju-on, where the kanji means the same thing on both sides, and films like Battle Royale, which has no kanji in its title at all, because the title is in freaking English. Speaking of... This is Teresa Teng, a singer, a cultural icon, and one of the most beloved and influential figures in the Chinese-speaking world. In 1973, she expanded her career into Japan and found surprising success. Her Japanese folk pop hits like Tsukunai and Aijin made her a Showa-era superstar. Go onto her YouTube channel today and you'll notice the comments are a mix of Chinese and Japanese. Everyone loves her. This is Teresa's Chinese name, Deng Lijun. Now, I want you to take a wild guess as to how her name is pronounced in Japan. Tore-kun, right? On Yomi? It's Teresa Ten. Motherf***. Yeah, it's like Japan is too afraid to deal with Chinese, so they just hire English as the middleman. I guess Chinese really is the most intimidating language. Such is the convention. A majority of the time, Chinese titles are written out in katakana in English. The Hong Kong action flick A Gaiwa was accurately translated as Project A in English. Japan then took the English name and released it as Project A. The same applies to Police Story, which is just called Police Story. Why? Because calling it Keikaku-e and Kesatsu Monogatari would be weird. Unlike us plebs who speak and write as is, Japanese is an insanely contextual language. Similar to how onyomi and kunyomi feels different, loanwords also carry its own cultural connotations. It's a common joke that Japanese is becoming English. Indeed, an estimated 80% of katakana loanwords came from English. So while it's debatable if loanwords are more common, they sure stand out a lot. Perhaps because the words are new, or maybe the West is perceived as more modern, English loanwords, and by extension katakana titles, carry a sense of modernity and internationality. As both Project A and Police Story are gendaigeki, English titles better fit their more westernized settings. And before you say anything, the cutoff between Jidai and Gendai is the Meiji Restoration, so yes, Project A is technically a period piece, but still a gendaigeki. Conversely, Drunken Master 2 was released as Suiken 2 in Japan. Yeah, the 2 is still in English. I mean, in Chinese it was written with Roman numeral, I guess we are not the one to judge. Though set after the Meiji Restoration, the aesthetic and subject matter of Drunken Master 2 are deeply traditional Chinese. And so, a direct onyomi reading works. But even this is not always consistent. As pointed out in the intro, why the f*** is Red Clip in English? Well, my guess is Seki Heki felt too generic and old-timey. An English title to a Japanese audience just sounds more international and exciting, as if the movie has made its way around the world before arriving on their shores. An even more extreme case is Hero, which was released straight up with an English title and in all caps too. Meanwhile, In the Mood for Love, a film dripping in westernized romantic atmosphere, kept its Chinese title in Japan. 发样年華 in Cantonese is read directly as Kayonenka in Japanese. The infuriating part is, I can feel that it works, but don't ask me how. Some titles do get properly localized, of course. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a word-for-word translation of a Chinese idiom, meaning masters who go unnoticed. Apparently that was too much for Japan because the distributor renamed it Green Destiny. English is always English. One final tangent, but while Chinese people read Japanese city names as if it's written in Chinese, Japanese people read Chinese city names in English. Surprise, surprise. Hong Kong, for example, is pronounced Hong Kong. But they don't write in katakana. No, they still write in kanji. See? Told you could fit one more if you relax. Here's the name of the Swedish furniture brand. How do you pronounce it? IKEA, right? Well, around the world, it's pronounced IKEA. There are many articles claiming we have been saying it wrong in English, and that's all BS. The English commercials say IKEA.
IKEA, love your home.
That's the official English pronunciation. Languages are just messy. Chinese and Japanese aren't uniquely so. On this channel, all of our videos are translated into Chinese subtitles by yours truly. While the quality is questionable, I assure you it's miles better than machine translation. If you read Doujin, you know what I mean. Our cultures are an intertwined mess. Even with all the advances in large language models, a universal translator remains forever a decade away. But maybe that's okay. Families are sometimes messy, but there is beauty to that. Despite this barrier, despite the mispronunciations, we continue to talk. And that, I think, is pretty neat.